It's too funny. So thank you. And so, as always, Peggy will be here sharing her insightful strategies and some wonderful tips with our We Heart Hounds family. If any of you might be new, we're getting lots of new people that come in every week to our We Heart Hounds family. So thank you, one, for joining, but two, for being here today. If being here, you'll get to hear all kinds of great stuff. Peggy is an amazing grief coach. She has helped so many people overcome loss and get through the other side of grief, really helping them find the courage and strength they really didn't know that they ever had. So we're really super excited to have her here with us today. And as all of you have done in the past, if you could continue to participate and share your comments and all that good stuff, we'll be happy to kind of check them as they come in and try and relate to those and speak to those as the conversation continues. As Hillary mentioned and as Peggy mentioned, we're going to be covering all kinds of emotions. Really, the ones last time we talked about guilt. This time we're going to be talking about sadness or anger, feeling lonely, or kind of that numbness or feeling lost that you get when you lose a dog. And I'd really just be curious to know if anybody has felt any one of those feelings, if any of that relates to something that you've experienced. If you could just hit the little sad face just for right now, just to kind of get a temperature in the room, just to see if anybody hears. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to please do that as well. We'd really like to know what you're feeling so that we can speak to that as well. And then while we're getting any of that feedback as that comes in, maybe we can just go ahead and jump right in. So Peggy, if you'd like to kind of get us started on that topic of all these other whirlwind of emotions that we feel, that would be great.
First of all, one of the things that happens when we start talking about feelings is sometimes people feel a lot of shame for feeling what they feel. We give ourselves messages like, I shouldn't be feeling this, or there's no reason for me to be feeling this, or it doesn't make sense for me to be feeling this. And the reality is, it's our feelings are just our feelings. They are not rational. Sometimes they make no sense at all. They just are. So instead of beating ourselves up for having the feeling, we can pay attention to them and then do what we need to do with them. So one of the real common feelings is anger.
Yeah.
And anger is a feeling that lets us know that something has happened that shouldn't have happened. And it doesn't matter if your dog was 423 years old, there's still this feeling that they shouldn't have died.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a cat named Sam who got poisoned somehow, and I had to put her down when she was just 8 years old, and put her down on a Friday. And that next weekend, I had family coming in, bringing their 18-year-old cat, and I was so furious at that cat, and that made no sense because that cat had not killed my cat.
Right.
But it was that my cat was gone and this cat wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just an honest feeling. Now, I didn't go like and slap the cat or anything, but
right.
I just realized this is why I'm angry, because Sam's not going to live to be 18 years old.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sure. And I does anyone else, if you happen to be watching, does anyone else have that? I ask this because that's definitely my first emotion that I go to is anger. And it's partly like, when I think of it, it's not fair kind of, it's not necessarily throwing things or hitting things type of anger, but it's just this, I'm really upset about this. I'm really angry about it. And I feel more comfortable in that than maybe the sadness or things like that. But it's that it's not fair, that sort of, and it's hard to get over that kind of push past that and let it go and finally find comfort in the anger. I think that was one of the things that helped me, was just, okay, the reason why I'm feeling anger is because that's where I'm comfortable, and just go ahead and let myself stay there as long as I needed to stay there, which is for me quite a while before I'm ready to deal with some of those other emotions. But that is definitely sort of my go-to, that I'm just upset about, I'm just mad about it. And I think it energized, like, I could get through the day angry. I wouldn't necessarily be able to get through the day sad. So I think it was a little bit of that as well.
Well, and anger is a very strong emotion. Anger prompts us to deal with something. We get all that fight or flight stuff going. And so for some people, it feels safer. It's not as vulnerable. Uh, as you mentioned, Hillary, it can be easier to help us navigate our lives because we can't just stop all of our responsibilities. And so the anger becomes the fuel that helps us get through that.
You almost feel like you're in more control, right? Like just that energy that it brings makes you feel like you've got control over an uncontrollable situation.
Yeah. And if we don't let go, so I know for me, I stayed in it for quite a while, and I definitely started to feel some damaging effects of kind of staying in that anger. And one of those would be like not eating or not sleeping. So I think it's just that energizing kind of situation. I know that was some of the things that I noticed if I stayed in it too long, as sort of the damage that it can cause, let alone being to other, my husband or other people in my life, kind of letting it out on them where it's not necessarily appropriate. And hopefully if there's people close enough, they kind of know what you're going through, so they don't take it too serious. But I can see those all being kind of some of the damaging effects of
stress too, right? Yeah. I mean, my gosh, that's that fight or flight, like you were saying, Peggy, that's you're in a constant state of stress too. So that obviously takes a toll on your body as well.
Yeah, our adrenaline starts pumping. We get all kinds of stuff going on physically, which is can be really helpful if we're running from the saber-toothed tiger. They're not so helpful if we're just trying to live our lives.
Right.
One of the dangers is that we displace this anger on people who don't understand what's going on. You may get a really bad case of road rage. How dare you cut me off? And then you start driving angry, and bad things happen from that. Although we feel more in control, sometimes we get out of control with it. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's really helpful to be able to name what the anger is. I'm angry because my dog is not here.
Mm-hmm. 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 What are the things that you can do to get past the anger? I mean, it is such a strong emotion. I mean, all of these are, but anger is, it's such an energizing emotion. How can you get past or start to work past it?
Or what's a good way to channel it, I guess, channel some of that energy?
You're probably going to hear me say this for every one of these Facebook Lives that we do, because it's such a great tool. But writing and journaling, and you can write angry. Mm-hmm. I'm angry because, and it doesn't matter if the letters are like this big and you're going through the paper because you're doing it so hard. It provides that release. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's helpful just to do something physical. If you like to run or really brisk walk, if you box, that's terrific. Don't hit walls or anything. But if you're in a kickboxing class or something like that, it's dissipating that physical energy. I know of one person who would get like a bunch of washcloths and wet them, and then go in her bathroom, like turn on the fan, and just throw them as hard as she could into the bathtub. And what happens is that makes a really nice splat sound. And there's something about the energy of throwing it and getting that sound that helps us to release that anger.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can think too, just the action of throwing away, like you're getting rid of it. You know, if you're doing it with the right frame of mind, that this is something that you really want to try and remove and not feed the anger, right? But that you're really trying to dissipate it. It helps you name it, right? Just kind of acknowledge that because it sounded like, you know, the conversation that you had with yourself around your cat and the other cat that you were angry with, you know, you're acknowledging, I'm not mad at someone else or someone else's pet. It's really just the anger I have about the loss. And that in itself kind of helps take that down a step and help you work through it.
And I think it's really important, and you hit on something really important, that when you do anger work, it's with an intention.
Mm-hmm.
It's an intention that I want to be able to release this anger. It's
Right.
not that I'm feeding it. It's not that I'm holding
Right.
on to it. It's
Right.
that I'm giving it a voice and I'm giving it a release. And it's amazing what difference having that intention makes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does. I read somewhere there was a study that was done. They showed people angry images, and they had, you know, for a couple minutes or what have you, and then they had one group just watch something soothing and sweet or calming. Maybe it was listening to music or looking at other images that were kind of the opposite of things that would get somebody angry. And then they had another group with one of those boxing kind of rubber,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call them, those little boxing,
Yeah,
the bag. And the researchers thought by getting that anger out would actually help people kind of move past it. Well, they didn't tell anybody what the intent was, right? They didn't say, you're watching something that's going to make you angry and we're going to give you a chance to release it. They just put people in front of these things. Well, without that intent, the people that actually hit that bag, their anger grew because it wasn't their intent to release it. Nobody kind of framed it that way. They didn't frame it themselves that way. So I think it is important. It is a key thing that you should do. I think with any of these emotions is really to try and find that intent to work through it. It's, as Hillary, as you were saying, you know, you can get comfortable in any of these emotions, but I think we have to kind of put ourselves in a vulnerable space and realize that this life doesn't have to always be this way, and the only way to work through it is to make those intentions and stuff to go beyond.
yeah. And I would say for 20 years, I've staffed grief workshops, and part of what we do is give people opportunities and avenues for releasing that anger. And again, I think when it's done with that intention, after they're done, it's like, okay, it's gone. It's done what it needs to do.
Yeah.
I'm not carrying this anymore.
Right. So one of the other emotions that we kind of talked about, that we said we were going to talk about today, was loneliness. That obviously is another kind of big one as well.
But you know, our dogs become our buddies. And it may be in a situation where you live alone and that dog is the one who greets you at the door, that you talk to, that you tell them about your day. And they never say, okay, enough about you. Let me tell you about the day I've had. So they're always ready to listen.
Yeah.
We have routines and rituals with them, taking them for walks. We have a companion for our walks. And even if we have other people in the house, a lot of times, if it's your dog, yes, the family dog, but it's really your dog.
Yeah.
There's that special bond there that you don't have with anybody else. And so when that dog is gone, it's really natural to feel that absence, which is part of what loneliness is.
Now, you had mentioned kind of when we were talking about what to talk about today, that there were there were a couple of different kinds of loneliness, which I hadn't really thought about it that way before. Can you describe what that is?
Um, there's there's the absence again. If if it's just you in the house or in your apartment or whatever, there's not having that other living being sharing your space.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's, it can feel so empty when you walk in and there's nobody greeting you. There's no interactions. And we get used to all of these little rituals and routines with them.
Hmm.
Uh, Another aspect is sometimes like our dogs are like our kids' best playmates.
Right.
And so, you know, you're used to them playing together and being together, and that's a part of your family's life. It's like your dog is a part of the fabric of your family. And when that dog isn't there, there's a hole in there.
Right.
I had a friend who had an English sheepdog, and when her kid was young, she said she never had to worry about him getting out of the yard because the sheepdog would keep him herded back in the yard. And so things like that of, you know, okay, I don't have to worry about something falling on the floor when I'm cooking because the dog's there.
Right.
And
So
so
it's
they're
almost, I don't mean to interrupt. So it's almost like there's a loneliness, there's a feeling of alone that's kind of that grows or is expanded upon when you truly are all by yourself. But then there's a feeling of loneliness that you can have. You're out in public or you're surrounded by friends or your family or your children or whatever. So you can still have that feeling of loneliness in both circumstances. Sounds like that's kind of what you're describing.
yes, and you know, if you're in a relationship that's not going so well, and you're not getting what you need from your partner,
Right.
you know, sometimes we look to our dogs and they're the ones giving us the unconditional love and say, okay, I can deal with this other person because my dog understands me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you don't have that dog. And you know, you can, even though you're with somebody, it can make you feel really alone because you don't have that buffer anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes even you feel like you're not honoring your dog if you're reaching out to other people or starting to connect with other people. Um,
And
Yeah,
that can happen too with like your other pets too. You can
oh, yeah.
like you're kind of dishonoring the loneliness that you feel for one pet by trying to you're like, I'm not trying to replace that space that was
Mm-hmm.
previously for one dog with another pet that's happens to be in your family.
yeah, I think with all these feelings, it's true that it's the nature of grief that one of the later task of grief is creating the new chapter, the chapter you write without this loved one, whether it's a pet or a human. And it can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving them behind. Or maybe I didn't care about them as much as I thought I did because I'm moving on. And the reality is that we never lose the things that they give us.
Mm-hmm.
We never lose those gifts. And what we carry in our hearts, we never lose. It's just that the reality of life is either we sit in a corner for the rest of our life looking at our dog's picture, or we move forward.
Right.
And with any of these feelings, it can feel disloyal. It can feel like a betrayal of
Mm-hmm.
the dog.
I think Renee's, thank you for commenting, Renee. Hi, it's great to have you with us here today. She says that, you know, she lives alone and when she lost her Buster, it was just so, so lonely. I can only imagine. I know it's just my husband and myself, but that deafening quiet, right? That makes it even worse, just because it's so quiet now. And that really kind of underscores how lonely and alone you can feel as well.
And I know when I've lost pets before, I had times with oversleeping, like every morning, and then I realized, oh, they got me up.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to worry about sleeping through the alarm because I'd have this little paw on my cheek saying, "Okay, get up," or barking in my ear.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's all of those moments. You realize, yeah, you don't have to worry about the dog barking because the dog's not here.
Right. Right.
And that's like a devastating relief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that helped me get past it was knowing that wherever I am, I carry my dog in my heart. So the loneliness doesn't feel so strong or intense when I think of it that way, that, no matter where I am, they're here, they're always with me. And I know that really helps. What are some other things I think that can be done to help people overcome the loneliness?
Yeah, I think again, part of it is acknowledging the feeling and not shaming ourselves with feeling, because loneliness is one of those feelings that I don't know. It gets put in this category of losers. You
Yeah.
know, if
Yeah.
you're feeling lonely, you must be a real loser, and it's not true because we all have those moments of feeling lonely, no matter how many people surround us. Um,
Right.
so a really important thing is not to shame yourself. Be grateful for the connections that you had with this dog,
Mm-hmm.
and be grateful for all of the gifts that this dog gave you. And that can be one of the ways of starting to heal. You can even keep a gratitude journal and write down the things that
That's a
you are
great idea.
grateful for with this dog.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think learning to open up and kind of get with other people that, would be able to empathize with your situation. Obviously, you want to be careful about that, but, just starting to open up, surrounding yourself with friends and family that, um, so that you don't feel quite so alone, I think it's something that can be helpful.
Yeah, I feel like you can kind of make a cocoon of your loneliness too.
Mhm.
So I think it's really important to just kind of make connections outside of that a little bit when you're feeling
Yeah,
like you can. And even if it's just the slightest little thing, it really can like kind of just crack that door open to let you
right,
feel like, okay, that
right.
wasn't so bad. I can start to,
And our
keep
We
on
Heart House
moving.
family can reach out to us.
Yep.
We're here. You're not alone.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, now that's part of the gift of this page that you guys have created, is that it's this group of people who do understand. And I suspect somebody could reach out and say, I miss having my dog at home, or I miss having him or her going on a walk with me.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you're going to have responses from people who really do understand that. And I
Yeah.
think, Renee, you make a really great point there, that even though our dogs aren't still with us physically, we can still talk to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're crazy or you've gone off the deep end or anything else. Um, you still talk to them. I miss you, or
Right.
you know, I'm I'm sorry I've got a beautiful yard because you're not digging it up anymore, or it
Or just saying good night or good morning,
yeah.
just silly things like that. Yeah, I think it's a way to acknowledge that they're still that they have made such a beautiful and lasting impression on your life. I don't think it's anything crazy at all. I think it's just a way to kind of acknowledge that they're either still with you, and if that's not how what you believe, or at least just acknowledging that they really made a wonderful impression on you, and that your life will never be the same because of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, when I lost one of my pets, I'd euthanized one of my pets. The vet sent me a card later, and it said something like, and this is not the exact quote, but whoever has touched our hearts are is in our hearts forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they really are with us forever. I mean, I had a cat that I got as a kitten when I was 8 years old,
Oh.
and she lived until I was a senior in college.
Wow.
And that cat, Kitty, real imaginative name. Naming was overwhelming for an 8-year-old. But that cat is she's still a part of my life.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah,
You
of
know, I
course.
just still carry her, and I know it'll be the same with my dogs. But
Mhm.
how can they not be?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So another feeling associated with loss is sadness, and if we can kind of, some of these feelings kind of can feel like they overlap a little, and
Mhm.
I think they do, and I think it's just sort of a wave of, at times, kind of a wave of emotions. But if we can kind of dive into a little bit of the sadness in particular.
You know, interesting. As a culture, we're not real good about just sitting with sadness. Again, we think there's something wrong, and you know, as we're doing this live, it's just a few days after Notre Dame burned in
Mhm.
Paris. And it was really interesting for me to see the number of people. I mean, there were so many of us that were just heartbroken and devastated, but the number of people who immediately went to, oh, we can rebuild this.
Yeah.
It's okay, we can rebuild this. And I wanted to say, just let us sit with this. Let
Mhm.
us feel this for a little while, at least a day or an hour. You know, so to allow yourself the sadness and know that sadness is just a feeling. Again, it doesn't have to mean that you're greatly depressed. It doesn't mean that you're weak or that you're doing anything wrong. It's that when we lose someone whom we love, we feel sad
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
we're not sharing our lives anymore.
Yeah, our lives are different now.
Mm-hmm.
They're different. I'm just curious. Oh, I'm sorry. I just noticed, Corinne, you've got a great question. What do you think about getting another dog that looks just like the one you lost? She said she's kind of a handful of a mix of emotions. Peggy, I'm going to let you take that one.
Okay. I think it's a really tricky one.
Mhm.
Um, I think that a lot of us dog lovers are drawn to a particular kind of dog or even a particular coloring. My two dogs, uh, they're different breed mixes, but they're almost the same colors and similar build, similar sizes.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of times we have a natural affinity. You know,
Mhm.
I'm just drawn to brown dogs and tan dogs, and that's just how it is. The temptation is that when you're getting one who's exactly or almost exactly like the one you had, it's the temptation is you don't let that dog be who they are.
Right.
And they may be very different in temperament, and that can be crushing when you get one who's just like, you know, the dog you had who was so cuddly and wanted to be in your lap, and you get a dog who looks just like him, but this dog doesn't want to cuddle at all. You know,
Mhm.
they want to do zoomies around the house all the time.
Yeah.
So it's really tempting. You know, people have talked about cloning dogs, and I think all of that's just trying to postpone the grieving, trying to do a detour around the grieving
Right.
because it
Right.
feels so awful. Uh,
Right. You want to go back in time, right? You're trying
yeah,
to
and just
replay the past, bring that
yeah.
back.
So I think we have to be really honest with ourselves and take a really hard look at it, and to ask ourselves, am I trying to just go back and have this dog all over again?
Right.
You know, I saw a puppy online from a rescue group who looked, she was the same mix as my Oakley, and looked almost exactly like Oakley looked as a puppy.
Oh,
And my first instinct was, oh, I wish I could get that dog. And I had to go, no, 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 no. I would be trying to get Oakley again
mhm.
as she is towards the later parts of her life.
Right.
So
I
it's
think you
hard.
set I think you set expectations on that dog too to live up to, the same kind of personality traits that the first dog had. And I think you set yourself up for
Yeah.
disappointment because I'm just like two children are the same, no two dogs are the same, no two people are the same. And they each have their wonderful traits about them, right? And you want to be able to encourage and nurture those traits so that you can forge a closer bond with them.
I
And
do
not,
think I
yeah,
do
go
think
ahead.
sometimes that even if you didn't know necessarily the intention when when you got the other dog, or if the dog is already in your life, their personalities will generally, you're going to learn new things. It's going to teach you a new way to,
Yeah.
you're going to relate with that dog differently. So it might be a little bit of a wake up call because you didn't even realize that there might have been a little part of you that was trying to go back in time. But as soon as that other personality is there, we just know how our dogs are so full of personality that you're going to have to deal with them on
And yeah. And
that relationship is going to build regardless of where
often without
you're.
a filter, right?
Yes.
They're just going to love you or they're going to do whatever all, without a filter often. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I would say to go along with that is I have a theory that for all of us who are dog owners, no matter how many dogs we have and how much we love each dog, there's that one dog who is the special once in a lifetime dog. And it may be the time in which they came into our lives. It may be the parts of our life that they shared, the events, the ages that they shared with us. It may be just the dog's personality.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay to give ourselves permission to say, that was mine. That was my heart dog.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to have other dogs and they're going to be wonderful and I'm going to love them to the moon and back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to expect them to be just like this dog that I lost.
Right. Right. Exactly. I know we kind of we were talking about sadness. I kind of want to go back to that. I'm just curious if there's anybody here that has kind of felt that cloud of sadness that has followed them throughout the day. I know one of the things I obviously I've broken down in tears on this before, so obviously that's an emotion I have felt and still continue to feel. And one of the things that I do, I think, to try and get through it and get through the day is kind of bottle it up and package it and so that I can get through the responsibilities that I need to take on and kind of muster through. But then there's always something unexpected usually that triggers that, and then that's when that emotion comes up again. And I think it's probably healthier or better to acknowledge the sadness and work through it rather than try and disguise it and pretend that you don't feel that way at all.
Yeah, and you can also trigger the sadness for yourself if like you're walking around with it, and obviously you can't be sitting at work and crying all day.
Right.
So you have to do some of that bundling it up. But if you need to release it, we all have those movies that make us cry.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name of the movie, Dog's Life or something. There's one movie that I will not watch because I know
Mm-hmm.
the dog's going to die at the end.
Yeah.
And I don't need that in my
No.
life.
Yeah.
But if there are movies that dog related or not, but they always make you cry,
Mm-hmm.
find that movie online, stream it, get your Kleenex, get a bottle of water. If you need a little bit of Haagen-Dazs to help with the mood setting, go ahead and just let yourself have a really good cry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
for
that
sure.
kind of release that we need to have sometimes. And so to do it in a way, again, with that intention of,
Right.
I just need to give voice to the sadness.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
can kind of schedule it a little bit. So
mhm.
you're like, okay, I'm gonna either I'm gonna bottle it up, but I know later I'm going to, you have you can kind of feel like you have a little control over the
Mm-hmm.
sadness is a tough one for me. I definitely try to push it away. That's why I stay in anger rather than the sadness. I try to push it away as long as I can, but I'm like, okay, I know this music or this movie or this thing. I can kind of schedule it a little bit and I'll go, okay, I'll go ahead and feel it now.
Yeah. And it's nice because you know a book or a movie or a poem or a song, they have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So it does give you that sense of control. There's a beautiful book by Jimmy Stewart. It's a book of his poems, and there's a wonderful poem that he wrote about his dog Bo. If anybody gets a chance to read that book or listen to the poem, it's really beautiful. But it's one of the ones that kind of touched my heart. But yeah, I like the fact that you can kind of have this compartmentalized moments. And other times, it just comes out of the blue and
Yep.
then you lose it for a while and then you kind of work yourself through it. Corrine, I know sounds like you just recently gone through something, broke down crying at a birthday party last weekend. Your fiance asked if you were going to post your new puppy picture on Facebook and you had to excuse yourself to the bathroom and have a moment. Yeah, we've all been there for sure. So I think just being able to find those moments of release, and if you feel like it's just never ending, and you either only bottle it up or just let it out, I think you just have to practice working yourself through that emotion, maybe in small doses, I would say.
Yeah, and
Um,
also, I think this goes for all of these feelings. If you find yourself having feelings and you think, I love my dog and this is the hardest thing for me, but there's something here that just feels a little bit out of proportion, like I
mhm.
can't work through it, I can't move through it, I'm still stuck in this place. You may want to reach out for some help because one of the things that happens is
Yeah,
the feelings from our past that we've bundled up, whatever they were related to. Sometimes when we have a present day feeling, they're like, okay, guys, here's a chance.
Mhm.
So,
yeah, they jump right in.
it may be the sadness because your dog died when you were 5, or it may be the sadness because your mother died when you were 5.
Right.
Uh, so if you really, if you're expecting a surfing wave and you get hit with a tidal wave, then that's a good time to reach out to somebody and say, hey, wait, I just need to sort through this.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. One of the final feelings we are going to talk about today is that feeling of feeling lost or numb. You feel like you were hit with a ton of bricks and you can't breathe. I know that's definitely a feeling I've had with both of our losses, with our first beagle Daisy and then again with Clover, especially those first few days after it happens. People will tell you things, it goes in one ear, it goes out the other. You're given a decision to make and you either can't make the decision or at least with me, I have this conversation with myself as like, does it really matter? Like, do I have, like, cause you just kind of like, the thing that's missing from my life, the dog that's missing from my life is the only thing that matters right now. And I really don't care about anything else. I just kind of get numb to the world. Um, so it's another tough one to go through.
Yeah, and I want to talk about two different sides to that. One is that initial kind of shock. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who gave us stages or aspects, chapters of grief. The first one she talks about is denial. And later in her life, she said she really wished she had called that shock, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Even if you know your dog is dying, even if you have made the appointment with the vet, there's still an element of shock.
Mm-hmm.
When you come home and you're not bringing them home with you.
Right.
So that's like a normal kind of buffer zone. The other side to it is, well, there are going to be three things. The second side to it is there's something we call grief brain. You may have heard people talk about chemo brain, how their brains get fuzzy while they're doing chemo. A similar thing happens with grief is our brains get just kind of mushy and we forget things. You start out driving somewhere and then you realize you have no idea where you're driving to. Completely forgotten it. That's a normal part of grieving. It's just our systems get overwhelmed, and that's a really normal part. The third thing is that I tell grieving folks is that this is a time when you get to be a little bit selfish, because there really isn't anything in the world that matters to you in that moment as much as that loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's okay, like, not to do the cupcakes for the kids' baseball team. I said, no, just not this time around.
Yeah.
And it's okay if that friend who always calls on you again and says, I got to tell you about breaking up with my boyfriend, or I got to tell you about what happened at work. It's okay to say, I really can't do that right now. I'm kind of overwhelmed. It's okay if you really don't give a rip about what somebody else is going through, because your heart's just kind of too full right now.
Mm-hmm. I think, it's interesting that you say that. I think the younger me might not have even allowed myself that because I didn't think I deserved to put myself first. So there's some of that, even just that was my normal thinking, right? That wasn't even grief or no grief. I was always trying to put others first, or that was, how I was raised and what I looked forward to doing all the time. So I think it is really important to take that time for yourself, and learn to say that it's okay to say no, when you're going through this. You've got a lot on your mental plate to work through, and try and cope with and come to terms with and recognize the new normal.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
There's kind of this, like the world's kept on spinning. Everything's still the same, but for you, nothing is the same. Everything feels like it's out of place, and it's just you kind of feel lost. Like you don't fit in your own life the same way you used to, because there's a big piece of your life that's missing, but everything else is still going on. Everything else is still the same, and it's really disconcerting. It kind of makes you feel like you don't fit.
Right.
It's a really uncomfortable. It can be a really uncomfortable feeling.
Right. How do we get over or move beyond this then, Peggy?
I think this is to give ourselves some time and not getting overly anxious when we are in this place of recognizing this is what it's about. This analogy has maybe been used to death, but it's a good one about when you're on the plane and they're doing the all the safety stuff.
The oxygen mask.
Good mask, you got to put on yourself. I was watching a TV show last night with firefighters, and he was rescuing a little boy from a burning house, and he got the oxygen to himself first before he gave it to the boy. So a lot of times when we just give ourselves what we need without that judgment, without that shaming, then it's amazing how much more quickly we can move through, or easily we move through. Because Kubler-Ross used to say that really honest emotions, if we're able to feel them and to experience them, they don't last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like we move through them.
Right. Yeah, just knowing that there is an end. It in terms of the severity of it, you're always going to feel a loss, but you are able to work through it.
Yeah, and that I'm just curious for anybody that's watching, or if anybody's watching in the replay, if you felt this, if you can share your experiences and some of the things that maybe helped you through this sort of feeling lost or the numbness. I know it would be helpful for other people if they're watching this and reading the comments and things like that. We definitely read all of the comments, and anything you share really is a help for everyone. It's helpful to kind of know that there's been other people that have gone through this as well.
Right. Yeah. No, everybody's insights and experience is so valuable. So thank you. If you have something to share, we would love to hear it. That would be great. So, Peggy, in terms of kind of going through all of this, learning how to be patient with yourself, kind of, I guess, some of the same things that we talked about with going through anger or sadness or loneliness, is just kind of acknowledging it and working through it, knowing that it won't last forever. I think one of the things that does eventually help is just re-engaging, right, with the world around you, and learning that even if it takes some time, that's an important step in the process as well.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it all at once. You know, you do one thing, it's okay. I can do this. It wasn't perfect, but that's okay. I got through this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, friends that or loved ones that you can really trust with this, that's invaluable if you have them in your life. That it's a good way to start moving forward is to have coffee and maybe talk about your dog a little bit. Okay, I need 5-10 minutes just to talk about what it's like without Rufus.
Right.
And then be intentional about, okay, now we're moving on to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, one of the things I'm really excited about is Peggy's book is how to heal from the loss of a dog is going to be available very soon. So we'll be putting a link in this replay, and I think it'll help give some of those tools. It was put together specifically for our We Heart Hounds family. This link that we'll be providing, it'll give you some tools, some tips to kind of gently guide you through some of the things that we've been talking about, and it'll kind of go into a bit more detail and dive deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Another nice thing is you can do it at your own pace or jump to chapters kind of as you need it, picking it up. So I definitely think it'll be a helpful tool in the toolkit of coping with this.
And I will say that part of the feedback I've gotten on this is that it's in very manageable. It's not overwhelming, because sometimes you
Right.
look, there's like 300 pages and you think, I just can't deal with that.
Yeah.
So part of my intention was to provide real help and really concrete help, but not be overwhelming when you're already feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, I agree completely. Just happened to come across your name soon after we lost Clover, and the reading the book that you've got was the perfect amount of learning how to heal or go through that healing process without having to just overwhelm myself with the topic, which I was so grateful for. So thank you for that, Peggy. I know so many people will find it valuable as well. If that sounds like something that you would be interested in, go ahead and hit the little heart icon or like icon. Just let us know that that would be something you'd be interested in. Again, as Hillary said, we'll put a link to that in the replay for those that would be interested. I think we're kind of wrapping up our discussion for today. So Peggy, how would you like folks to go ahead and get in touch with you if they want to reach out one-on-one individually to connect with you?
You can reach me through my website, heartcallings.com.
Okay. That's great. Heartcallings.com, and we'll put a link to that in the comments as well. And so please, anybody interested in getting hold of Peggy, that would be a great way to reach her. If you've got some value from this, we sure hope there were some tips and tricks and some nuggets of good information that you received today. If so, let us know. And also if you could share this with anybody who might be interested in either this topic, or let them know about our Thursday sessions, that would be great. We would love that. This is something we're doing from the bottom of our heart, just as a way of giving back to all of our wonderful We Heart Hound family. And we're looking forward to the next session. It looks like we've got 2 more left to do. Next Thursday is our next session, the 25th. It will take place right here at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The topic we're going to talk about next week is about how couples grieve differently, which I know is a topic that we've heard. It was something we were planning on, but it's also a topic we've heard other people mention in their response to this series. So definitely looking forward to that one as well. And don't forget to download the ebook for Peggy's free ebook. That'll be a huge value as well. We'll put a link to that and all the other resources that you need from this session once the replay is done. Peggy, did you have any other comments or suggestions or anything else you'd like to say as we close out for today?
I'd just like to reiterate what we said at the very beginning, that our feelings are just our feelings, and they're really a sign and symbol of the relationship we had with our dog and the gifts that this dog gave us and the heart connections that we had. So the heart connection doesn't go away. The feelings just acknowledge that life has changed. And so to be gentle with yourself, with whatever you're feeling.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
So I think that closes it up for this session. And I really hope everyone feels all the healing and caring that we're sending your way from across the miles, because it really is, it's our privilege to be able to provide these. And I really hope that it's meeting the people that it needs to get to. So from
Absolutely.
us to you, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
today.
everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.